Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by for this latest Shelf Reflection, where I sit in front of a camera and I reflect on something. And also invite each and every one of you to a conversation about it. So today's topic is an interesting phrase. It's no secret. I have been in lots of different forums, discussions about cultural competency in board games, and different conversations like that. I'm very drawn, at least when the conversation is good. When it gets flamey, I'm out of there, but some good conversations. And this phrase comes up a lot in a lot of different contexts, and I wanted to break down the different elements of it. The phrase being, it's just a game. You hear that phrase and it might stir up some feelings, right? So I wanted to break all that down. Using that phrase definitely takes conversations in certain directions. So it's worth analyzing and seeing, what exactly it's doing and if it's worth using or not. I'll break all that down. But before we do that, please consider a subscription to Shelf Stories. It is easy. Just press that button. I think it's here or it's over there somewhere. It's somewhere around there. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Spread the word. If you have anybody in your life who is into gaming and who wants to kind of broaden the perspective a little bit, I'm talking about mental health, history, culture, conversations like this, reflections, please invite them. This channel, I feel like it's just getting started. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. So I appreciate every single person who likes, subscribes, comments, all that good stuff. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to break down It's Just a Game. So I'm just going to lay my cards out on the table at this point. I'm not a huge fan of It's Just a Game. I think that I see where it's coming from. I'll break that down in just a second. But I think that the way it's being deployed in internet conversations, especially nowadays, or maybe even in people's real life, I just don't think I think it does more harm than good, even unintentionally. So I guess maybe this is my PSA to say, let's think of a different way to approach what we're trying to say, because It's Just a Game might be causing more heat than light, and it is cheesing people off. Well, how's it doing that? So when the best way to use It's Just a Game is with children. So I got children, and I got my 5-year-old. We're starting to learn how to play. I'm introducing her to some graduated games. And, where we're actually competing against each other, not just like the really teeny cooperative games. So then, when you're competing with each other, there's a chance of losing, and losing does not feel good. So then, when it's a small kid, they don't really know the difference between like a game and life. Everything is a threat. Every loss is this terrible thing, causes tantrums, crying, all that kind of thing. And you say to the kid, it's just a game. It's a really good instructional tool to kind of say, okay, this is the circle in which we are going to be respectful for one another, And then in life, when you lose in life, it's a little bit more hurtful. But in the game circle, in the magic circle, it's just a game. Control your emotions, right? And especially negative ones. Control your negative emotions is what that phrase is trying to say. With kids, as a developmental thing, sure, fine. It teaches them the difference, that there is a difference between games and life. Once you get into teenagerhood and then eventually adulthood, we know there's a difference between games and life. Pointing it out is annoying. It is. And more than annoying. It can be, on the part of the person saying it, it feel really shaming. It's just a game. Control yourself. How could you be so irrational? How could you be so stupid? I remember I used to hear that when I was playing my Sega Genesis, and way back in the day. I'll be, going into it, and, I get really mad because I couldn't beat a boss, so I couldn't do anything. And I'd be, bang the controller or do whatever. And yeah, yes, I absolutely, the core thing is there. I need to learn to control your emotions and everything. That's a good lesson. But I think that's the phrasing of it and the insinuation that I'm an idiot, that I am, I don't know the difference between a game and life is just used to do stuff to me. And I hope that, our old school video gamers out there would, understand that perspective. Or just like, we're a big tabletop gaming channel. So you're at a table, and there's somebody over there that's over competitive and, kind of putting a bad vibe onto the table, taking things personal and everything. That's another way in which people say it's just a game, dude. Calm down. It's just a game. Uh, we know we're not stupid, and maybe we've got let our passions get away from us. Talk about that in just a second, but find another way rather than dig. It's almost like a little dig that like we don't know that the difference. So in that way, it does more harm than good because at the very root of it, if it's used improperly, I should say, in an internet conversations, we always interpret things in the worst way. It's just a game is just gonna tickle that shame impulse, and you're gonna get a defensive reaction every single time. So it actually goes beyond that. It's just a game is actually becoming less and less true, especially on an emotional level. So, when we were kids, but you have your family weight games and you're in, you're out. They're not really that engrossing, right? But think of games nowadays. Think of how much games cost. Think of multi-$100 Kickstarters. Think of the amount of investment that comes in a game. Think of the way games are crafted. I mean, I think we talk about games that tell stories. But what's a story? Stories are emotional realities. They're trying to bring us on emotional journeys. It's a game that is trying to be more than just a game. It wants to tug at our emotions and it wants to make us feel happy in these different things. And anybody who's paid attention to what's going on in board gaming nowadays, especially in this land of COVID, we've come through 2020 and we're hopefully, going to get vaccinated. And as I record this, and we have like greater times ahead, I think a lot of people are thankful to have had gaming in their lives, video gaming, board gaming, any kind of gaming to get them through this very, very difficult time. And those are all good emotions. I mean, like I have a series on the Dice Tower where I talk about using games in therapy. And I've used games to help people who have ADHD, depression, anxiety, cognitive decline via Alzheimer's. There's all sorts of different conditions that people have. And the right game and the right situation can actually help a lot. So on an emotional level, games do so much good stuff. So why are we surprised when games that we laud for provoking positive emotions provoke negative ones? We want that. Games have developed. I mean, we're not in the era of Milton Bradley anymore. We want that positive emotion. And if you're going to, create products to elicit positive emotions, then you're going to get the negative ones. And there's no use shaming somebody for falling into some of those traps. Really isn't. As much as we would like to say, control your emotions, we can't just take one without the other. It takes like a kind of broader emotional education to be able to truly come to a point where we've controlled and managed and everything. We need to take games as emotional realities and just kind of embrace it, the good and the bad. And we can go from there. I'm not justifying tantrums at all, but shaming somebody into thinking that, that this game that made them so happy and, so comforted or whatever happened to all the good stuff that happens, especially in the land of COVID, but all the other times, now we're going to shame them for feeling negative emotions. I think there's a better way to do that. So there is a deeper level. So we're going down levels over here, people. A lot of the cultural competency discussions that I've had have also had this phrase a lot. It's just a game. Usually it's in respect to folks, a generation of folks really, who are questioning representation in games. And my personal bugaboo is colonization. I've done a couple videos about it, but it's not just that. I mean, there's all sorts of cultural representations or images. Like there's a big thing about Kickstarters and scantily clad women with the minis and everything. There's so many different things that people are starting to question on a cultural level, and then you'll get that snapback from the other side that's saying it's just a game. Why are you getting so upset? Why it's people's escapism, it's people's fantasy. Let them have their fun. It's that nobody's getting hurt. It's just a game. So that becomes the strategy of saying, calm down, but on a more kind of grander scale. So to speak, not just within a particular game, but like just about gaming and representation in general. So that's a really difficult one for me because I really do feel like that argument bites back. I've said this before and I wanted to kind of articulate this a little bit. If it's just a game, then change it. Whatever the person is saying, right? If let's say I'm taking the example of a colonization game and there's colonization pieces, there's problematic imagery or whatever, and it's like there's people that are involved and they're connected to the game and they're saying, can you please change this, please, this isn't right, I don't like this, and then you hear no, and then the volume will go up, this is really bothering me, no. If it's just a game, why can't you just change it? Aha, it's not just a game, it is an economic reality. The reason why certain games have the theme that they have is because it sells. And there is a lot of, product management, the whole chain of process. Multiple people have the designer, the publishers, the people that are employed, the printers, there's a whole chain of production that happens in order for us to land a game at the table, and they want to maximize the profits. So there are certain images that will make profit. In colonization, what I like to say is that colonization games offer a certain kind of escapist fantasy. They, they offer, a nice, peaceful, tropical areas. They offer, time periods in history. It's almost like a tourist where you can go in, you can see what happened, the great growth of civilization, all that kind of thing. It offers this kind of like escapist fantasy version, which increases sales. It makes people feel good. And to hear that, and they'll say that, they'll tell you this thing. This is not secret. So on their end, they're following the economic reality. But then when a certain sector of people respond to it, then we get it's just a game. Okay, no, I don't think so. It is not just the game. It is your pocketbooks at stake. And say that. I'm fine if this is a raw reality that we have to deal with, because then I know what I'm dealing with. But then to add that extra layer of you're taking it too seriously, well, you're taking it too seriously because this is your profit at stake. Not too seriously, but like you're taking it seriously. So for you on the publisher end, and for people that are defending their escapist fantasy, that's really what it is. The defending, it's just the game means leave me alone. Let me feel good. I just want to make this about games. It's just the game. The escapist fantasy is often based on real stuff that real people are attached to, and we can question those attachments. We can say there's certain people on that other side of the equation going, are you taking this too personal? Are you too sensitive? Blah, blah, blah. We can have that conversation, but to go the route of it's just the game and expecting that to end conversation, it's not going to work. Economically, it is demonstrably true that this is not just game. So let's call it for what it is. So the last dimension I'll talk about is it's actually a little bit on the other side of things, right? So far I've talked about it's just the game and how it's used as a way of saying, calm down, get your negative emotions out of here, just enjoy what you're playing, and without any kind of negativity whatsoever. And, I don't believe in that for various reasons. One, we applaud how games make us feel positively. We indulge a lot of that stuff, encourage it. If we're going to do that, then we need to, take the bad with the good and just deal with it as opposed to shut it down and shame it. I don't agree with that. So there's an emotional thing going on here. And also, there's a financial cost too. Just the game is, escapist fantasy is big business. So if you're going to take that end of the thing seriously, then there's going to be people who are critical of what you're producing that are going to take it seriously too. Not taking a side on either of that, but I think it's just the game is not the way, not a useful phrase in that particular discussion. Now, I want to talk about the dimension of people who feel that talking about difficult things in games is somehow disrespectful. It's just a freaking game, as I got on a Twitter reply once. We cannot talk about colonization or, different modes of oppression, of historical difficulty or anything. Bringing it down to the level of a game, this entertainment product is just not going to be the way to handle these things. definitely very, I definitely want to take that argument very, very seriously. I'm a trauma therapist. So, anything that could possibly trigger somebody's trauma about oppression, suffering, all that kind of thing, I want to be really serious about, no question. I do want to say, though, that I don't think the answer to that is to define games down and then say, okay, games cannot be X, Y, and Z. I want to do the opposite. I want to lift games up. I think games are downstream of culture. I think games are cultural products like art, music, poetry. I would love to consider the best of what our hobby has to offer representative along those areas. And not just like the fun stuff. I think that, the whole like kind of time capsule thing, if we launch a capsule into space, what's going to be in there? I'd love to see a couple of games in there as representative of our culture, how we had fun, how we, bonded together and experienced all the good things that we experience that when it comes to games. And not just like, classic games and everything, but instructional games too. Freedom the Underground Railroad, I'm going to review the Dice Tower very soon. I have more coverage on my channel. I would love more games like that. That game came out in 2012. Nothing else has come out like it in 9 years, really. Other great games have come out like, Pax Pamir and, A Few Acres of Snow and This War of Mine. And these are games that are just awesome when it comes to the culture that it represents, the questions that it's challenging us with, the education, things that I know about whatever time period or whatever peoples that I wouldn't know had I not played the game. I think that games are a wonderful opportunity. And for me, because I define games as a cultural product and not like just the entertainment, just the game way, I think I think I'm able to at least open myself up to the idea that games can handle heavier stuff in fruitful ways, not disrespectful, not exploitative, but educational and fruitful and beneficial. I think a lot of it comes down to how we define it. If you're going to define games down, you're going to diminish them. They don't belong there. I want to raise definition of a game before I go that way. And I guess I'll close with that. I think, what are we doing as gamers? Do we really want to say that this thing that we spend hours on, talking on the internet, at the table, collecting thousands of dollars you're looking at right here, my money, my family's money, do I want to diminish that? Do I really? Is that the only tool I have in the chest if I want to say to somebody, calm down, bring out the it's just the game thing? Well, I'm actually kind of diminishing myself, aren't I? It's like, if it's just the game, what am I doing here? It's almost, in a way, I'm kind of shaming myself if I were to engage in that. And I really tried hard to think about how I use that phrase. I'm not like anybody else. I've used that phrase. Really think about it and say, is this the right way to say what I want to say? Maybe I do want to say, check your emotions, check your negative emotions. I think that I want to find different ways of saying that. I don't want to diminish this hobby. I don't want to diminish this interest. I don't want to diminish what games can really do when they're done right, emotionally, financially, and culturally. I am absolutely open to any and all sorts of discussion about this. I had some great discussions about some difficult topics, wading in to the flame. But I think I really believe in this. If we do this right, if we're respectful, if we honor the person speaking, it's kind of almost like separate the idea from the person. Maybe we disagree with the idea, but as long as the person is talking in good faith, we can have a discussion, and I've had some really, really good ones so far. So I want to continue. What do you think about It's Just a Game? Have you experienced that in your life? Have you been told that and felt bad or good? Or maybe, I'm making too big a deal out of this, being too sensitive, and I should just just take it. I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. Please respond in the comments below. Shelf Stories GBL on Twitter. Username Popesixtus on BGG. I've gotten some great private geek mails. And also Facebook, I'm pretty open on there. Lots of ways to continue the discussion. I absolutely welcome it and love it. So this is Jason reminding you, if you change your mind, you can change the world. So until next time, later everybody.